the only one of the season so far, but the rest of the week was quite good.
Wonderful. How's that sounding? Okay, thank you very much. Much appreciated. We're going off air now. Well, welcome back, everybody, to the 9th EBERSPÄCHER Luge World Cup, the World Cup finals here in YANQING, China, where we had the Beijing 2022 Olympic Winter Games. We're coming off the back of an action-packed men's World Cup doubles race, where we crowned Toby Wendell and Toby Alt World Cup champions for the 6th time in their career. But now the attention switches to the start and the top of the track with the men's singles, and the race for the title is still very much on. I've got Lisa Schulte of Austria with me. Hi, Lisa. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, thanks for having me.
We've got an amazing graphic of this track up on the screen. Can you tell me, what's your impression of this track?
Oh, it's a really cool track. It's wide curves, and you're really slow in the beginning, and you slowly pick up speed, and then right out of the spiral, you really pick up the speed before there's like the tricky corner 13, and then it's already over again.
Corner 13, that's been something special this week, hasn't it, for everybody?
For everybody, me included.
So this is what the men will see. You're obviously coming through curve A and B, but from then on, I'm guessing it's pretty simple.
Yes, it's pretty much the same. This is curve 2, which can also be a bit tricky for the men, I've heard. And now in curve 3. And here you have sometimes a little bit of pressure into 4. And the curves are really, really wide, and you're not having a lot of speed. Coming into curve 5 and to 6. And now out of 6, there's a straightaway, but it's actually 7 and 8 before you come into curve 9. And now 10. And now you're coming into the big spiral, and it's a pretty wide curve. You have to do, you don't really have to do anything in there. You can just enjoy the ride. And then it's curve 12, and now the tricky curve 13, and now the exit with this bended straightaway, I would say, and into the finish curve, which can also be a bit tricky in the exit.
Wow, yeah, and we're looking at the ice temperatures as well this week. I mean, for something that's such a tricky track for people and so technical, having this -9, -10 degrees ice, what have we got? Well, wow, that's a huge change. We have only -4.4 ice, where we went last night from the women's, as you know, -10, and just in the doubles we had -8. So I'm guessing maybe that slightly warmer ice temperature could make this a little bit easier to handle.
I think, yes, it's still very cold, but I would say it could be better. Also, it could be faster, since the ice is not that cold, and there could be a little water film in between the steels and the ice.
Which will give it a bit of grip as well, I'm assuming.
Yes, hopefully for the men.
Absolutely. So there we have our start list for the first one. Alex Guffler of Italy opening up the proceedings. And then we have a great Chinese presence in this race as well, the local Chinese team taking part in the team competition late for the first time this season. But we're going to be seeing 4 Chinese athletes, 4 home athletes, showing what they've learned over the years training on their home track. What a great opportunity for them. And there's the crystal globe that we're fighting for. Triple world champion Max Langenhang is leading with 616 points, ahead of Nico Gleicher of Austria, who's on 558 points. And then teammate Felix Lock is back on 505 points. So what this means is Langenhang is holding the best cards right now. But if Nico Gleicher wins, Langenhang would have to finish at least 7th to defend his last year's title. I mean, it's been a great World Cup season, hasn't it, Lisa? I mean, the racing is, I feel it's been closer than before, and we've seen a lot of different names on the podium.
Yes, it definitely has been different to the past seasons. I think it's been exciting, especially for the men. I still think that Germany and Austria are the strongest nations, but there's Christos and Dominic from Italy and Latvia who can join the podium a few times. So I think today will be a really exciting race again.
For sure. I mean, we saw so much drama in the doubles and also in the women's. But now we go to the top of the track. This is Alex Guffler of Italy. I was saying we saw so many key points of the track in these, in the women's and the doubles. I'm wondering for the men, where do you think the tricky sections of the track are going to be?
I think it will be pretty much the same as from ladies start with 13 and also the upper curves with curve 9 to 10. I've heard that many people had problems there. And I've also heard that curve 2 can be tricky. But I'm not sure if it was back at the Olympics. I'm not sure how it is this week.
Well, they're kind of shaped more like a plate than a bowl, aren't they, almost, the curves? They're very flat, and it's different to what the athletes are used to.
It's totally different than what we're used to slide in, but that's what makes it cool, I think, here in China.
Exactly. It's a fantastic track and a fantastic welcome the Chinese Federation have given the athletes and the whole tour as Alex Guffler of Italy gets us going for the first run of this EBERSPÄCHER Luge World Cup. Pretty comfortable so far.
Yeah, so far it looks like a good run. He was a bit high in the end of 2, but he managed it just fine. And now it looks, oh, he was at the roof right there, but he managed it really well, I would say. Going.
He's calm. That compression out of 6, what does that feel?
Big problems. That was the curve 9 that I talked about. It feels really weird because you're just getting so light right there and you can't really steer at this point. And after that, you're right into the next curve again. And if you hit it the right way, it's amazing. And if you have mistakes like Alex had here, it's not so much fun, I would say.
Alex Guffler, though, putting down a good show in the Dragon's Tail there, just getting picked up on the end of that uphill finish curve, but crossing the finish line with a 59.4 to open the timing for us here in this first run of the World Cup. Few mistakes up top, I'm thinking, and that really costs you before Kreisel, doesn't it?
Yes, it does, because it's still so flat up there, and you just start picking up speed there. And that was a really big mistake with hitting the wall and skidding, so it cost him a lot of time.
So here we go with Sweden's Svante Kohala. The Kohalas have just been so good this year. I feel they've just taken a step forward. That's been really exciting to watch.
Yes, they've really improved their sliding, and they're just doing so well. They're training with us, with Team Austria. So we spend a lot of time with them. And Svante is a really good slider, and I hope he can show that today.
Really going for it with the head back there into the first curve. You see so many different lines in these top 2 curves, Lisa.
Yes, that's what makes it so cool being on tracks like here in China or Pyeongchang. But Svante's having a bit of a hard time in the upper curves right now with some really early entrances into the curves.
Svante needed to keep it together here, just bumping on, going very high there into 6, but getting his composure back. And still in the green by 24 thousandths, but looking like it's gone into the red. No, he's stretching that lead out. This is a great run for Svante.
Yes, I think he just found back to the line, so now let's hope he get a good entry into 12 and going into 13.
Getting away with that early entrance in 13, which caught out so many of the women yesterday. Just a little tap in the Dragon's Tail. Shouldn't cost him too much time. But Svante Kohala of Sweden crosses the finish line as our leader with a massive 9/10 of a second lead over Guffler.
He's shaking his head, though, I feel like because of the upper curves. He had a lot of small mistakes there going on. And I think that's, as an athlete, you just know you're losing so much speed up there. But right there, it's a good line out of 13.
Well, I guess it's so difficult to just put it to the back of your mind, isn't it, on the run? You go through that curve, and you have to just think about what's in front of you and not what's gone by.
That's one of the hardest things. If you make a mistake, you just forget it for the moment and be angry about it if you're in a finish. But as long as you're in the track, you should look forward.
It's looking like some of the little mistakes aren't affecting the men nearly as much as it did the doubles and the women yesterday. We're seeing like little taps, little early entrances, which I think with the -10 ice would have maybe sent some of these athletes in with not such a great result.
I think so as well. And also, I think the men have a little more speed. which makes it a bit easier, I would say, to stay on the right line up there.
Absolutely. Now, Leon Felder, a friend to the commentary box here, called the race with me yesterday, and into the lead straight away by 17 thousandths on the start.
And having a good 2 right there. He's looking really comfortable on the sled right now.
Yeah, he's been improving all season, I feel.
Yes, he had his ups and downs, but I think hopefully today is a good day for him.
Just that lead getting eaten away a little bit, but then building it up again by 500ths as he comes out of that deep compression into the uphill section where the sled gets so light. And this top section is looking like he's putting together something good.
Yes, it looks like a really clean run so far. And he's having a good position on the sled right there, going into 12. And now he's going into 13.
How do you like that middle entrance to 13?
I think it's good. As you see, it was a good exit as well for him. It's a great run. I think you shouldn't be too early into 13. That makes it harder.
We saw a lot of the women go early yesterday. 58.4 for Felder, ahead into first place by a tenth of a second. Yeah, we saw a lot of the female sliders bumping early onto 13 yesterday, and that really costing them. And a lot of them going very, very close to that right wall. And is it because 12 just wants to throw you across slightly to the right?
I'm not sure. I think maybe if you have like a late entrance into 12, then it pushes you too far to the right into 13. For me, I've never had the problem so far.
Okay.
So I'm not sure. But I think if you steer too much in entry of 12, it can also push you really hard to 13. I think that might be it.
So Timon Grancagnolo of Germany, one of the qualifiers from the Nations Cup. Our fourth athlete to go today. And at this point, a lot less action than we saw in the first few sleds for the women in the doubles. As you say, the extra speed, maybe making the track work. Obviously, these tracks are designed to be driven from the top in a bobsleigh. And when a luge goes back again, I guess the curves are made for those speeds.
Yes, and also we've seen a lot of experienced athletes already. So maybe in doubles it was a bit of a younger field and not so experienced field as well here in China, which makes it harder as well.
Grancagnolo just dropping back by 400ths, but he started back by 300ths. So he's holding steady right now. So if he has a decent bottom section, he could do something quite special. And he's cut that lead down to 200ths.
Yes, it looks like a green run, and now he's already in the green.
If it's your first time watching luge, when we say in the green, we're referring to the clock in the bottom section at bottom right-hand corner of the screen. If it's in the green, you're ahead. If it's in red, you're behind. But Grancagnolo crossing the finish line, firmly in the green into first place and up by 0.220 of a second. Well done.
That was a solid run, especially out of 13. I really liked it. He looks so comfortable on the sled right there and just really letting the sled go, which is great. Not a lot of people can do that out of 13.
Yeah, and keeping the position as well must be so difficult.
Yes, it's really hard.
So that how 13 looks when you're stood by the track is there's a chicane on the right-hand side, and that tends to send the athletes towards the left wall.
Yes. And also he just said it was just his third run here on the track because he's been sick for the whole week. So he said, oh, it was pretty okay for the third run here.
Yeah, I'd be pretty happy with that, with my third run on the track off the top. Great sliding there from Timon Grancagnolo. So, Gintz Berzins of Latvia in the track, our final Nations Cup qualifier until we get into the seeded group. Straight into the green with a big start that is traditional for Latvian athletes. We work very hard on the start.
Yes, he's a really strong starter. And he's also showed up in Pyeongchang last week with a sixth place, I'm not sure, but he did a good job in Pyeongchang last week as well. And he's having a solid run here so far.
Up by a tenth of a second. He goes through that tricky curve 10 that caught out so many people. Little early onto Kreisel. Shouldn't affect him too much.
No, I think it was a bit too early, but he did a good job being soft on the sled, so it didn't push him away from the curve.
13 looking good. Has to carry that height a little bit, and he does. Little skid through the dragon's tail, but controls it beautifully as he comes up that tricky uphill finish curve and crossing the finish line, just dropping by 23 thousandths of a second. Birdsins into second place. Behind our current leader, Timon Grancagnolo of Germany. Very high there.
Yeah, he was really high right there. And also out of 13, where he had this little skid, it's because you get really light there. There's a little compression. And if you steer just a tiny amount, you just start skidding.
So Alex Falazzo also joined me in the commentary box yesterday to call the races. Falazzo having a good weekend in Pyeongchang last weekend. Also in the mixed with Natalie Mag. And who can forget his 5th place finish in the World Championships in Altenburg last year. Really showing that some of the small nations with good support and a good attitude can do something special in this sport.
Yes, definitely. He's an amazing luge athlete, and I think he's really showing off over the past 2 to 3 years. He really improved his sliding, and he's also a great starter. And I think it's great because he's a one-man nation, basically, and he's really showing that it's possible.
Alex Falazzo with a big start there, straight into the green, little high in 2, but doesn't affect him too badly. And moving into the lead by 700. Good position as well.
Yes, he's always having a good position. It's as like the Canadians and the Americans have as well.
Yeah, Alex Falazzo was with the Canadians this year in a partnership, now being coached by the Americans while we're here, just bumping on a little early onto 10. That lead dropping a bit. He's only got 300s to play with, so he needs to carry the speed, and he's into the red behind Grancagnolo. Let's see how much in this 47 split.
Really early into 13.
Very high in the entrance of 13. Skidding through there into the finish curve. That's going to cost Falazzo. Crossing the finish line into 5th place with a 58.858. Felt like he did all the hard work at the top.
Yeah, he did. There was already a little skid into 2, which didn't cost him that much. But here, out of 13, he had a big skid right there. He did a good job staying on the sled.
Yeah. And this is where, again, you say it comes down to just keeping your cool and not panicking.
Yes, it's very important, even if you lose control. Yes, he's not happy with that run.
So Falazzo into 5th, getting the green light, which means his equipment doesn't need to be scrutinized and tested. As we move to our first Latvian of the race, Kristas Apiods, 2016 Youth Olympic champion, and then made the transition to the senior tour just look like he had always been there.
We just talked about it. He still looks the same like he did when he went to the YOC in 2016?
Yeah. He's a big guy as well, isn't he? Tall, long arms, just everything you need to be a good starter and long on the sled.
Yes.
So Kristas Apiods gets us going with a very fast start at 2:51.8. Start record here held by Johannes Ludwig, 2:45. We're not getting close to that at the moment, but there's plenty of sleds to go. Apiods building on that speed. See on the mini-map in the right-hand corner, he's up by a 1/10 of a second.
Yes, and he just did a beautiful top section right there, but he just tapped the wall a bit before 9. Did a good job correcting it though, and he's back online.
And didn't lose too much time, it looks like. Just, in fact, gained 100. Let's move towards 12.
Yeah, really nice position on the sled here.
And the dragon's tail. What
beautiful,
do you think of that?
Beautiful exit.
That was beautiful sliding from Kristas Apiods, and a very, very well-deserved first place for Apiods. Crossing the finish line 1.5 tenths ahead of Timon Grancagnolo of Germany. Here we see him keeping that long position on the sled, staying aerodynamic. Definitely a run that could put him in good contention for run number 2.
It could, but I also think he still has something to improve with that little mistake before 9. There's still some time in it.
So here we go. Austria's David Gleicher 2018 Olympic champion, your teammate. What's he said about this track this week?
He had some really good runs and some really bad runs here in training, but I think he usually does good in races, so let's hope he does a good job today.
Yeah, both those Gleichers, they're great competitors, aren't they?
They are.
As their father Gerhard was, another great competitor, great mind for racing.
That was a little skid before 3 right there. But now he's back on line.
At the moment, but starting to pick up time and cutting the deficit at that split time. Going to the 24 split, it's down to 16 thousandths of a second. A little bumpy through that compression, Lisa?
Yeah, he was a bit too early out of 6, but he did a really good job correcting it, and now he's into the green, into Chrysler, and I think he's really starting to gain time.
This 47 split at the exit of Chrysler is going to be telling just how much time he's gained. 12-13 transition looking good. 1.5 tenths still to the good for David Gleicher.
Really nice exit out of 13.
And crossing the finish line with a 57.838. David Gleicher into first place. 2 tenths of a second ahead of Christos Apiods. And as you say, those mistakes Apiods made at the top, looking like they cost him dearly.
Yes, and David's run except out of 6 was really clean, I would say. So I think that might be a good time.
Yeah, definitely one of the contender times coming through from David Gleicher. As our next athlete prepares at the top, it's going to be Latvia's Kaspars Rinks. I didn't see what he got there. Did he get?
I think it was green.
Got a green. So Kaspars Rinks of Latvia, our next athlete to go. Young athlete, another one that made the transition up from the junior ranks to the senior ranks look very comfortable.
Yes, he's a really good slider. It's his first time here in China, so he doesn't have a lot of runs here.
And a lot of athletes' first runs in China, isn't it? It's, I mean, 6-8 runs maximum for a lot of these.
Yes, and it's really hard because every curve here is so special and different to the European tracks as well, where we all have a lot of runs.
That high line in curve 2, we saw that a lot in the Olympics. And it didn't seem to cost them that much, it just looks dramatic.
Yeah, I think as long as you don't touch the roof and on top, it's fine.
But Kaspars Rinks losing time here. He's back by almost just over 1.5 tenths. Rinks going into the Chrysler now. Perfect opportunity to kind of think about the next half of the run. I feel this Chrysler cuts to 2.
Yes, you can really start like taking a deep breath in Chrysler and prepare for what's coming.
Is there much to do in that Chrysler? Oh, Rinks power sliding down the Dragon's Tail. Ice flying everywhere. Dropping the feet and crossing the finish line. 58.712, 7th place from Rinks. And yep, that's exactly what he did. Big skid, almost probably for 50 meters at least.
Yeah, it was almost the whole straightaway, it felt like. Yeah.
See that ice just flying up. Rinks doing everything he can to stabilize that sled, get it going straight again before he hits the curve in 15. Ooh, bit of drama.
Now we are getting the drama.
You know, the first day of training, pretty much every athlete was struggling with the Dragon's Tail, and we've just seen how good these races are on World Cup, that they can take, for some athletes, like you say, Timon Gran Cagnolo, 3 runs and just get it wired and nailed down, you know. And then you see majority of the athletes taking those 8 training runs and figuring it out in that, not a lot of time. That's
true. But I think that's what makes us being able to slide in the World Cup and putting down great runs.
Exactly. The best in the world. There's another one of the best in the world, Ukraine's Anton Dukash. Very high again into there. 2 just picking up the athletes if they get it just slightly wrong. In fact, it looked like he may have made contact with the roof there just slightly.
Yes, and he also hit a skid then out of 2 before 3. But now he's back on line, going into 9.
Costing him time. He's back by a quarter of a second behind David Gleischer. That's now extended to almost half a second. So Dukash needs to stay calm and have a faultless bottom section on the track as he approaches curve 12, staying relaxed, staying along, keeping the position. Nice entrance to 13. And into the Dragon's Tail, almost clipping that left wall, but just stays away from it by less than a centimeter and crossing the finish line into 8th place for Ukraine's Anton Dukash with a 58.738.
That was so close out of 13, but he really kept his cool. But here into his really high, almost touching the roof right there.
Wow. That's high. What's that, 4 meters, 5 meters?
I'm not sure, but the curves here are really, really high.
It's a long way down. A great shot where you see how relaxed these athletes are at speed, which is one of the most difficult things to do in the sport of luge, I always say to people that haven't done it before, is staying relaxed at 130.
Yes, it doesn't seem so fast on TV as it is in real life.
Until it starts going wrong, and then you get a wake-up call.
That's true.
So Tucker West of the United States of America, a first USA slider and only in the field. Johnny Gustafsson unfortunately struck down with that horrible virus in the village that was doing the rounds with the athletes. Tucker West, one of the hardest working men on tour, straight into the lead on the start. Big starter, Tucker. He got a start record in Nations Cup in Pyeongchang last week, which stuck around, so he now holds a start record there as well. And Tucker trying to chase down the one here, but just bumping onto 6 set.
Yes.
5.
But it was except that it's a clean run so far. He seems to be a bit like movie on the sled. It's like a lot of moving. But the upper curves, there's a lot to steer, and it's hard to make it look easy. So now I think he's on the right line, and he's showing off a really good run so far. A bit early on to 13, though.
Getting that direction, and he's off the sled. Needs to hang on to sled, cross the finish line. This is the World Cup finals where every point counts. Let's just hope that Tucker's okay. That was a big hit. But crosses the finish line. And that was a big hit from Tucker West, just flipping. I was saying the other day that these tiny mistakes that you see out of 13 become something huge. Like, that is not a big hit on the left wall
it's just
for that result.
It's a really small tap. And our coaches told us as soon as that happens, put your feet down to stabilize. And I think Tucker just thought it would be just fine because it's such a small hit. And then these curves, because it's not a real straightaway, it's a little curve, it just flips you over so fast.
Well, and it's in your instinct as a slider to ride it out if you can, isn't it? And
yeah.
Keep your feet up. So that must be very difficult to change that mindset of dropping the feet.
Yes, exactly.
So Felix Lock of Germany. Felix Lock was on the comeback trail back in Pyeongchang last week. He had a couple of great runs during the World Championships in Whistler as well, where we really saw vintage Lock on a track that he loves back in Whistler, where he just got the most wonderful Olympic victory all the way back in 2010. Seems amazing how long he's been on the circuit, but he's still fighting with the top dogs week in, week out.
Yes, and his start is really fast as well, so he's a great starter, great slider.
I really like that 2-3 transition there. You just saw him get spat out of curve 2, building speed. But only 0.07 of a second to play with towards David Gleischer, and that lead is nothing.
Yes, David had a really clean run up there. Felix's run is also really nice, though. He's having a great position on the sled.
Dropped out of 10 a little early there.
Yeah, but he did a really good job correcting it because it just looked like nothing. Nice 12 into 13. And it's also so quiet when he slides. It's really nice to watch.
I was going to say that roll into 13 just looks so smooth as Lock crosses the finish line back from Gleischer by 0.02 of a second. Did that little tap on the left wall after the finish line, cost him those 0.02. Wow. So we have 2 thousandths of a second between first and second at this stage. This is turning into being a bit of a classic again.
That's a tight race right there. It's going to be an exciting second run.
And that mindset when you're going in when it's basically all tied up, that must be pretty tough, you know, in terms of your strategy for the second run.
Yes. And 2 thousandths of a second, it's nothing. Oh, a bit slippery there in the outrun.
And here we go, the man of the moment, the World Cup leader. And someone looking to defend his overall World Cup title. This is Germany's Max Langenhan. I mean, just great to watch. Max Langenhan. I feel last season especially, he was just on such a run of good runs, good victories, and real just looked so comfortable and relaxed on the sled.
Yes, his sliding, it's really great. And usually he's like putting one run after another, no mistakes, and it's just looking perfect each run.
And off the start, a 2:52. A little way to go to our start record of 2:45 today. Maybe won't get that today just because of the slightly warmer ice. But Gleischer dropping back here and Langenhan moving ahead by 700ths of a second. Bump on a little early there, Lisa.
Yeah, it was a bit too early, but he did a good job correcting it. And now out of 6, really nice. And smooth into 9.
Really nice lines through the top, as you would expect from Max Langenhan.
And he's just building up speed more and more with a really clean run. Really good position right there on the sled into 12. And now
13. Let's see if another beautiful entrance.
Really smooth. And a really smooth exit out of 13.
And the position on the sled as he came towards that camera, I hope we see that again. Max Langenhan into first place with a 57.532.
So that's a little message to the Austrian TV. We have a group called the Luge Girls. It's the girls you just saw right there and me. And we've been doing vacations together for a few years now. And the Austrian TV tried to explain it a week ago or two, and they did a little bit of a wrong pronunciation right there. So that was a little statement.
So it's hashtag Luge Girls. And Max Langenhan, as you saw on that slow-mo replay, just stretched out fully, flat as he could be.
So confident on the sled.
So the one athlete that could move ahead of Max Langenhan, Nico Gleischer of Austria. He's already had 2 wins this season, one in Innsbruck, one in Sigulda, looking to have the hat trick of wins today. But Max Langenhan definitely holding all the cards at this point. If Gleischer wins today, Langenhan cannot finish any worse than 7th place if he wants to defend his title.
It's a bit of a rough run so far here. He's a bit skiddy out of 2 and too early into 3. He's also been sick the last day, so he's not in his fittest.
Did you get away without getting sick?
I've been lucky so far. I hope it stays like this.
Yeah, me too. It's I've been a little nervous around meal times. Okay, Nico Gleischer coming round the Kreisel. Big 370-degree 7-second Kreisel, needing to find some time in the bottom of the track, but that is tough to do as he drops back from Langenhan by 1/4 of a second. Dragon's Tail, excellent as you would expect from a slider of Gleischer's caliber. 133 kilometers an hour, but not enough. Back into 4th place by 3.5 hundredths of a second. 3.5 tenths. My apologies. Messy up top, I think.
Yes, it was a bit of a messy run in the upper curves. And I think he's in 4th place, but I think Max is the only one with a really big advantage, and then it's getting really close between the men right there. So it's going to be a really exciting second run.
Yeah, not looking as smooth as he would usually, I don't feel, in that run, Nico Gleischer. Because he's another one that, you know, the shoulders, his timing on the sled is usually so on point, and I felt just not quite, looking a little stiff through the top curves.
Yes, and now Wolfie.
Well, Wolfie Kindle, incredible athlete, incredible slider, hardest working man in show business, doing doubles and singles. And which means that he is spending most of his life at the track, sliding down either on his own or with his doubles partner. And Kindle into the red and back by 1/10 of a second. Wolfie holds the speed record in Whistler, 155 kilometers an hour change. And now I feel that's Wolfie's superpower, isn't it? That speed.
Yes, he's a really good slider with a really good position on the sled and very confident on the sled. He's not the biggest starter compared to others, but it's enough to keep up with them and then to really show his strength in the track. And he's having a clean run here. I think it was a bit messy in the upper part as well, but right now it looks really good again.
Yeah, a quarter of a second back at the last checkpoint. That's now extended to 3 and a bit tenths. Kindle's got to get the Dragon's Tail right. Almost clips that left wall, but manages to get away with it. Kindle crossing the finish line into 5th place in the 57.978. 4.5 tenths back from Langenhan. That shows what a heater Langenhan put down on that run.
Yeah, Max really showed what he can do in the track today. And I think he's going to stay in the first place after the first run. I think that's pretty safe to say. But Wolfie stayed so cool out of 13 when he was so close to that wall. It's really impressive.
Makes it look so easy.
Yeah, he's not happy with his run.
So Wolfgang Kindl looking to tidy things up for run number 2 as we come back to another Austrian. This is Jonas Müller, our 16th slider of the day. How's Jonas's week been?
I think he had his ups and downs. Usually he's really getting fast to the race. But I think he's a great starter, and I think maybe he can keep up with Max in the upper part, and then hopefully he's having a clean run.
Big, aggressive paddles from Jonas Müller as he gets going into the lead by 6 thousandths of a second. Now the job he has to do is to take that 6 thousandths of a second and multiply it down the track.
Yeah. Really good job there in the upper curves, going into 4.
See what we're at. This other split still in the green. Slowly building speed here. Thousandths by thousandths.
He's having a really smooth run here so far.
Needs to keep it clean, needs to keep it perfect if he's going to catch Max Langenhan. A little loopy on the Kreisel, Lisa?
A little bit, but I think it doesn't matter too much as long as the exit is smooth. Really high back there in 12, but he did a good job into 13.
6 thousandths of a second to play with. This is coming down to the wire. Jonas Müller's going to have to pull out all the stops, crossing the finish line. Back into second by just 6 hundredths of a second.
Yeah, he's had a really clean run so far. It was the only one who could keep up with Max. I almost talked too soon when I said Max is going to be first after the first run there. But he had a really nice upper part of the track. It was a bit messy out of 6, I would say, but he did a good job correcting that. And other than that, and maybe the close exit of 13, it was a really good run.
Carrying that speed through those top curves was, I thought, incredibly impressive, because it was tiny increments. It went from like 8 thousandths to 10 thousandths, 13 thousandths, but still in the right direction for Jonas Müller. So Dominik Fischnaller of Italy, one of the senior members of the tour now. Fischnaller, watched him in training. He was having a great week. Looked really comfortable in the bottom section on the track. Another athlete that's gone away and consistently works on that start.
Yes, he's a really strong athlete as well, and also one of the best sliders on tour, I would say.
Absolutely, 3 thousandths of a second in the lead, but very high in 1 and 2. Back by 4 hundredths. Yeah, I think to watch him slide, you know, I speak about this every week, but I think he's just the nicest slider on tour to watch in terms of his timing of the curves, his position, just an excellent neutral. But dropping back a wee bit here, he's back by 6 hundredths.
Yes, it's a good run so far. Maybe some really small mistakes in 6, but right now he's a really good run. Going into 12. A bit late into 12 though. But nice entry into 13. Just 2/10 back now.
working with that little second rise in curve 13, but doing the dragon tail beautifully. Just getting picked up in the exit curve. And into third place for Dominik Fischnaller.
And the girls are having fun in the leader's box.
Fan club. It's a quarter of a second back.
Yeah, he was really high there into almost on the roof.
That's another one of those curves where it's so important to keep you cool, isn't it? If you're going that high, it's just to keep that position, stay long, stay back, and ride it out.
Yes.
So
Hello,
very
friend.
close between Langenhan and Jonas Müller, just 0.06 of a second, and snapping at their heels is Dominik Fischnaller of Italy. Now Andre Manzi of Ukraine qualified through the Nations Cup. Manzi, another athlete that builds speed well through the bottom of these tracks on the tour, and another one that when you see those shoulders move in the curve, he's just so smooth on the sled.
Yes, he's a really experienced slider, and you can really tell that when you watch him slide in the tracks.
So dropping into the track with a very decent start there, 5:53, so just 7 thousandths in it for Andre Manzi. So good start for Manzi, but dropping back by 1/10 of a second.
It's a bit late into 4, but he's doing a good job. Nice entry into 5. Really smooth so far, his run.
Really good to see Andre Manzi on tour, been on tour for many, many years. And this is an experience game. The more runs you get on your sled down these tracks around the world, the better you become. And Andre Manzi really putting down a good run from the qualifiers end of the navigates 12. A little early to 13, but you see that little shoulder roll, just hope he's fixing it. Having to drop the feet down through the dragon's tail, power sliding into the finish curve. As he crosses the finish line with a 59.23. 16th place for Andre Manzi, and that was shaping up before 13.
Yes.
Being a decent run, Lisa.
I think he would have had a good position before 13, but it seemed like he steered into 13, and then it was just too early, and then it's hard to get a good exit out of 13. And he had a massive power skid out of there.
Yeah, tough to do anything when you're a passenger on the sled like that. Just doing everything you can to make the steels bite into the ice. And these steels, if you haven't watched luge before, they're not sharp. The athletes aim to have steels that don't create friction, so sharp steels, you want them sharp for consistency, but you don't want them like razors, that's for sure. As Mateusz Sokovic drops into the track with our fastest start we've seen so far, 5 thousandths of a second. Another guy that works hugely hard inside.
He's such a good starter. He's always in the green on the start. It's really impressive. He was really high in 2, but he managed it just fine.
Just having to drop the feet going into curve 5. Goes through down that steep hill into that big compression.
It was a bit late into 9. But now he's back on track. He has some little insecurities down the track so far.
Back by half a second, Mateusz Sokovic. Solid 12-13 transition. Good to see there from Sokovic. Let's see how the Dragon Tails go. Little tap on the left, but manages to keep his cool and ride it out and crossing the finish line. Into 15th position, Mateusz Sokovic, back by 1.3 seconds. Another example of the partnerships in this sport. You know, the Polish always under the wing of the Germans, who support them incredibly well.
Yes, definitely.
Not a one-man team, but a very small team.
Yes, this week it's a one-man team, I think. He's the only Polish guy here in China.
Gets the green light, so that's a bonus that he gets for the first run in terms of not having to go and be weighed and have his equipment checked. As we get to our first Chinese slider of the day, Zhenju Bao. Local slider. Lots of run down this track. And Lisa, I mean, the Chinese team, it's been so cool to watch their progress from basically coming from nothing in 2019 and then being built into a team that is competitive on every track in the world.
Yes, and they have some really good athletes there. They're really good in the start already. and they are also improving their sliding every year. So I'm really excited to see them here in the World Cup.
Smooth through the top, confident as well, just putting the head back through these top curves, showing the confidence of having those run after run.
Yes, they really want to show that they can slide well here. And he's putting down a really solid run here so far.
A little skid into 9, got to get it back under control, and he does. That's going to cost him, Lisa. Huh?
That's going to cost a lot of time. Also, there was no skidding. So they probably have a bit of sharper steels right there to correct it. It's easier to correct.
So Bao a little way back now. Going to be about a second back, 1.1 at that split point. Putting down clean lines through some of the track. Spoke too soon as he just taps the wall through the Dragon's Tail. Ice flying everywhere as Bao crushes the finish line into 18th position.
Big skid right there, out of 13. Yes. No, it didn't look too bad out of 13, the line in 13. But sometimes it's hard to tell. Maybe there was a little mistake that we couldn't see.
You've also got the right steel ever so slightly higher than the left.
Yes.
So Valentin Cretu, been on the tour for many years, one of the very senior athletes on tour, lots of experience with this athlete. Not the fastest starter, but where he really makes it slide is in just great sliding.
Yes. Oh, but he's having some small problems up there. But back on line now in 4.
Cretu stretching out, just trying to fix those little mistakes. High in 6, drops down nicely though from 6 to 9.
Really nice transition there. And a bit too early onto 9. And a late entrance into spiral, which isn't too bad since you can easily correct that in spiral.
So transition to 12 looking good. Now we need to make that entrance to 13 right, and he does it. This is where the Dragon's Tail is almost over. Almost does the same as Tucker West did earlier. Manages to keep the sled on its steel. Crossing the finish line into 18th place. Valentin Cretu as Eugen Radu looks on his coach. 1.7 seconds back for Cretu, and lots to work on for the second run.
Yes, there was a lot of height in the end of 9, so it was a bit early into 10. And there he almost fell over. He did a really good job staying on the sled right there. He was basically already on his side.
Yeah, the really tough lines there through the bottom section of the track. For Valentin, our 21st slider down the mountain today. As our next slider to take the start is Japan's Seiya Kobayashi. Seiya Kobayashi in a partnership with Team USA, who treat him as one of their own. It's a really quite an embedded partnership.
Yes, it's great to see. He's also been improving his sliding really well over the past few years. And he's just having fun sliding. Every time I see him, he just seems so happy, which is great.
As his coach, Masaki Toshiro, does also always, just hitting the roof there, having to do something special in the top here to get the sled back on track. And that is, you just can't come back from that, can you, Lisa?
No, it's taking so much speed out of your run already. Now it's just trying to get into the finish and staying safe on the sled right there. It's really hard to focus on the run, though, if you have such a bad mistake on the top of your run.
1.7 seconds back, Kobayashi. That mistake at the top costing him more than a second. Kobayashi putting together some good lines through the bottom section of the track, though, Lisa. So you've got to think that without that big mistake at the top, we might be looking at something different. But power slide down the Dragon's Tail into the finish curve. Kobayashi crossing the finish line with a minute 1:42 in the 21st place. Seiya Kobayashi with a huge mistake in the top.
Yes, there won't be a second run for him to fix this mistake. He was really, really high there to really touching, not just touching, it was hitting the wall up into and almost crashing there.
And a big hit on the right shoulder out of curve 1, doing everything he can here down the Dragon's Tail to keep the sled where it needs to be. Tough day for Seiya Kobayashi, and as you say, Lisa, he won't be getting a second run. Only the top 20 athletes get the second run. As we come to our next Chinese athlete, this is Qingshu Wang. Great talent identification the Chinese team put together. Really, they went out and they found athletes from other sports that they thought could go to luge. And look, only 16,000% back on the start. That shows how athletic some of these athletes from China are.
Yes, they are really strong at the start, and I think if they get some more years to even improve their sliding, it would be great to have another big nation into sliding.
Definitely, and we're going to be very lucky to see the Chinese team. Oh, big skid out of 6 there. Got to get it back under control. Going up to the roof in 9 and hitting out of 9 into 10.
Oh man, that cost him all his speed he got.
And that's going to be a long journey around the Kreisel for Wang. As we get to what will be his 48 split, 49 split, he's back by almost 3 seconds, losing all that speed before Kreisel. Such a shame, because the top part of the track was looking pretty solid for Wang.
It was looking really smooth.
And back into 23rd position for Wang, but you know, this is an experienced sport, and these young athletes have many more years ahead of them, and they've impressed everybody with sections of their sliding. And on another day, that could have been a very different run for Wang.
Yeah, he had so much direction out of 6, just really hitting the wall and losing the control of the sled. And it just cost so much time.
And when you hit that transition out of 6, slightly offline, I guess you go into that compression, and then the sled is weightless for a split second.
Exactly.
So if you're not perfectly straight, you're a bit of a passenger.
Yes, definitely. You just lose control over your sled and over what's happening.
So here goes Li Yangfang for China. Big, powerful start, really going for it, as he should, on his home track in front of his home crowd. So close to the roof there, but getting away with it into 3.
Yes, I think he might have even tapped the roof right there, but he did a really good job. Still having a good line right there, a bit too early into 5.
Doing some good corrections here. Again, this sport is not all about the perfect line, it's also about adapting when you don't have the perfect line.
Yes.
And Yangfang Li doing exactly that right now. Problem is, well, that's going to cost him some more time as well.
Yes, and a big loop there, but now he has to have a good entrance into 12, going into 13.
And the signature part of the track, this is the Dragon's Tail. Let's see how the home team do. Well, that's how they do it, absolutely perfectly from Yangfang Li. That'll go on his personal highlights reel as he crosses the finish line, just missing out on a second run into 21st position. 2.3 seconds back, but that's how you do 13, Lisa.
That was a really nice line of 13. He did a really good job sliding there. He also has a good position on the sled. Really nice.
Yangfang Li in front of his home crowd. We got one more Chinese athlete to go in just a couple of athletes. But next up is Daniel Marcinovsky of Ukraine, another athlete that was struck down by this virus that was doing the rounds in the athletes' village. So didn't have many training runs, had never been here before. Probably hasn't had more than 3 runs on this track, but he's here now in the World Cup finals, trying to make up for that lack of training. 25th fastest on the start for Marcinovsky.
There was a little skid into 2, I think I've heard right there. A nice entry into 3.
Keeping the sled quite low through those top temperatures.
Yes, compared to the others, it seemed really low right there. But he's doing a good job. It looks like a really nice run so far.
Just out of 6, just gets that tap, manages to get the sled under control after a contact left and right. But another hit on the wall before Kreisel, and unfortunately this is going to make it very difficult for Marcinkowski to find any time for the bottom section of the track, having made a couple of mistakes as he drops the feet into 12.
Yes, a lot of problems right there going into 13 and really low there. Good job saving it. I thought he was too low at 13 for a good exit though.
Managing to save it, dropping into 22nd. Marcinkowski 3 seconds back, not going to get a second run, but some flashes of great sliding at the top of the track for Marcinkowski. But then those big mistakes, especially this one here out of 6, where you come down the mountain into that compression, the sled then goes weightless, and if you tap a wall there, there's not a lot you can do.
But he's still a really young athlete and doesn't have a lot of runs here on the track, which makes it so hard to have clean runs here.
Exactly, just 21 years old, Marcinkowski. We come to the oldest racer on the Chinese team, Jing Li. Again, big starts, these Chinese athletes. They work hard on them in the summer. But Li here, not doing a full start.
No pedals.
And this is an exercise in probably racing in a World Cup and getting your first World Cup finish, which will be a huge, huge achievement for the Chinese team. You know, they've almost got a full complement of men in the World Cup, so putting Li down the track in his first World Cup, great to see. And putting together some nice lines.
Yes, it looks like a solid run so far. Of course, he's back a bit because he couldn't pull a full start right there, but he's showing really nice lines going into spiral right now.
Nice flat line through the spiral, out into 12. Good transition to 12, getting picked up a little bit in the entrance to 12. The 13 entrance, again looking good. Just coming off the sled, needs to keep hold of the sled if he wants to cross the finish line. He's close to it and crosses the finish line. 26, Li back by 7 seconds. It's a huge amount of time, but this is about experience for this young Chinese team, Lisa.
Yes, definitely, and it was a really nice run just until 13.
And it's a lot of pressure. If you've done a couple of junior races and then you make the jump up into World Cup on your home track with family watching, friends watching, it's a lot of pressure on these athletes.
Yes, it also needs more experience to be comfortable on the sled right there.
So Jing Li, we'll see if he does get a finish time. And then Eddie Krasian of Romania, another athlete that got sick this week, had a limited number of training runs, but Eddie Krasian, always good to watch, and every now and again pulls out a very, very solid result for the Romanian.
Yes, he did a good job in 2 and 3 right there, having quite nice lines.
Back by a quarter of a second, Eddie Krasian, as he goes round 5. And then tricky corner 6. Let's see how it goes into the compression. Very nicely done by Eddie Krasian through the compression, keeps the sled on its line. And then into the Kreisel.
A really long Kreisel. It's so much time to think right there. It's a bit late into 12 right there. But a nice entry into 13.
So this is where Eddie Krasian just skidding a little bit, but Dragon's Tail, not a bad result for him from that little skid. Skidding across the finish line as well, Krasian just missing out on a second run at the moment by 1 place and back by 2.2 seconds. For Romania's Eddie Krasian. I mean, there were a few biggish mistakes up in the top, really, that cost him there, Lisa.
Yes, there was. It was a bit early into 3.
We're going home.
Yes, and everybody's just super happy to go home. The season is over. It's been a long season for everyone, so.
Now here he is, the Finnish cat, Walter Wikström. Incredible how quickly Walter Wikström has progressed in this sport. Wikström only been sliding for 3 years.
Yes, and always going from men's start already on tracks he's never been to. It's really impressive and really brave as well, I want to say.
And he has great feeling on the stage, just hitting the roof there. But he's called the Finnish cat because no matter what mistakes he made, usually he will end up back on his steels. As Walter Wikström really impressing me this season. It's the men's start. Most people haven't even got off one men's start after 3 years of sliding, whereas Walter Wikström has been off almost all. He used to be a professional soccer goalkeeper, and that makes a big difference. It gives him great body awareness, so he knows where his body is in space, spatial awareness, and that just translates to his sliding. He's back by 3.2 seconds, but this is a run that he'll be obviously probably not happy with, but he should be proud of, because it's another one ticked off, another men's start on the World Cup Tour, and another World Cup start and finish for Walter Wikström, crossing the finish line in 27th place. He's not going to get a second run, but for a season for Walter Wikström, I think he can go back to Finland pretty happy with himself.
Yes, I would say so too, and except that too, it was a good run.
Yeah, I mean, that probably cost him a second and a half in itself.
Yes, definitely.
And a great shot there of him fighting to the end, keeping the position out of 13. So, Rasmus Moberg of Sweden. Rasmus crashed in the Nations Cup earlier this week.
As you can see on his suit right there on the arm.
Oh, yeah. Big, powerful starter, 6 paddles. That's the most we've seen. 2:48 start.
That's amazing.
Incredible start from the back of the pack.
Really, really strong performance on the start right there from Rasmus.
Just 300ths off the start record that was held by Johannes Ludwig in the Olympic Games when the ice was arguably considerably faster. Rasmus Moberg ripping the start handles out of the ground there to give us our fastest start so far, and just back by a quarter of a second at this point. The Swedish team just continuing to entertain all season.
Yes, I'm so surprised by that. I didn't expect that, and I know he's a good starter, but what he just showed there, it's amazing, and it's also a pretty good run for him right now.
Rasmus Moberg stretching out through the bottom section of the track. Let's see how 13 is for him. Little skid, but keeping
really
it good,
nice.
Keeping his composure. Rasmus Moberg looking to get a second run if he can, and crossing the finish line into 18th. He will get a second run for sure. Rasmus Moberg of Sweden.
Really, really good job from Rasmus right there. He's still so young, and it's the first time being here. And his start, so many paddles. I think that's the most done today on a men's start, and such a fast start time. It's really impressive.
Very high there, but yeah, that start time, that came out of nowhere. As you say, we know he's a fast starter, but to be 300ths off the start record, that was something rather special from Sweden's Rasmus Moberg. So our final slider of the day, David Nossler of Germany, carrying a nasty injury in his left leg, wears a boot when he's not sliding to make sure he doesn't injure it anymore. David Nossler had a tough season this year, but a good one. Again, making a jump for juniors.
Yes, that's true, and he also got sick over the last 2 days, and I just met him on my way here, and he's still not feeling great, but he still wants to slide. So let's see. Hopefully he has a good run and can leave China with a happy face.
Well, he's 3/10 back at the moment, David Nossler.
So far his run looked really smooth though. It's really nice. Good position on the sled right there.
Just moving back a little bit. Inkreis was back 5.5 tenths. But yeah, really looking smooth down the track, David Nossler. Keeping great position on the sled. Back by almost a second now. Nossler does have a perfect dragon's tail around finish curve, our final slider of the day, crosses the finish line into 15th position for David Nossler, guaranteeing himself a second run and hoping to move up into that top 10 if he can, because it's pretty tight in that area of the finish times. David Nostler there, pretty good run, Lisa.
It was a really solid run. I couldn't see any big mistakes right there. Also, the exit of 13 was really smooth.
No, so just ahead of Sokovic and just a tenth of a second back from Ukraine's Dukash. As we see Max Langenhan, our leader, Jonas Müller in second, Fischnaller in third at this halfway point. David Gleicher just outside. And Nico Gleicher probably not going to be able to make a challenge for Max Langenhan's World Cup at the moment. But as we've seen, anything can happen on this track. Leon Felderer in 11th, Svante in 12th, Rasmus with that huge start in 19th, Kretu in 20th. And then China's just missing out on a second run, Bao Zhenyu. But those 4 Chinese athletes can be incredibly proud to race on a home track, and it's such a shame they didn't get a second run, but we'll be seeing more of them in the team competition. So coming up next, we're going to have the men's singles second run. That's going to be at 7:55 local time. My name's Mark Hatton. You've been watching the first run of the Men's Luge World Cup, presented by EBERSPÄCHER Singles. We've got the second run coming up, 7:55. Lisa Schulte is going to be joining me then for run number 2. We'll see you very soon.